little bit rough stuff there in game number 1. Game number 2 should be on the way right about now. P's and B's, pretty please, as we see what happens here in game numero 2. Outcold Gaming on the left-hand side. We'll have the first pick of the first band. Do you think Simplicity lets him get Arthur and Merlin again? Or was that luck of the draw that they won?
I don't think it was the luck of the draw. I think Simplicity could easily give it back again if they know for sure that they'll get Khepri coming out of genetics, or maybe even Geb, Sylvanas, something defensive that can handle that kind of pressure, or maybe even find a way to dive that Merlin. They didn't really need to dive Merlin that hard in that last game because of just how much great team fight control they had in general.
I'm with you. Spoiler alert, I knew the answer to that question before I asked. Maybe not your answer, but I knew my answer. My answer is, yeah, man, look, King Arthur and Merlin are absolutely very, very strong, and they're the go-to top characters at the moment in a lot of people's eyes, but if you can beat them in organized play, and that's always where I'm talking about, man. Organized play is so different than just kind of playing games with your homies and having that team dynamic to either completely avoid the King Arthur or completely go in on the Merlin. That's the difference. And so one more time, Outcold Gaming do pick up the King. Arthur will be the first choice.
There's a lot of potential between those two gods, honestly, and the lore together. It feels very majestic having them. So the fact that they fallen in game number 1 doesn't really do the lore much justice.
They couldn't get the sword out the stone?
That's true. The Excalibur's Wrath did come out from time to time, but it just wasn't enough.
Terra one more time, looking to play this one, and, well, Hunbats again. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So Fela's going to stick with his character, and I think that's the most important part of this draft. You highlighted the fact that the defensive Guardian will transition into the late game a little bit better than characters like King Arthur, and that's all well and good, but again, Fela's is a player that absolutely needs his tools to succeed, and I like Simplicity really prioritizing these picks.
This is the change that Outcold Gaming needed. Some sort of defensive support. Half Devil was a little bit too frisky on the Fafnir. That early game, level 7, level 8 play where he jumps into the back cams was just so aggressive that he falls. Like, nobody was even close enough to save him out of that time. And when you're dealing with a Merlin in your mid lane, you need that Khepri to save him.
The Uller here for Simplicity. This was in the hands of the Hunter last time around. We'll see if it winds up there again. Streak up looked pretty strong. Of course, Death Panther on the Chernobog. So we got to keep an eye on the Simplicity draft because so far, it's exactly the same damn thing. Bans included. Daji coming through here in the secondary phase.
And it makes sense to want to go a Hunter up against the Merlin, where Merlin kind of succeeds at level 7 and higher. He's going to be able to poke you out once he gets a little bit of cooldown reduction with Chronos Pendant and MP5. So you want to try to find a way to basic attack him, whittle him down, maybe invade his red buff as a result by having an extra pushing power. So even Uller could be played technically in that mid lane. Death Panther known for playing Hunters back in Season 4 during his time with Elevate.
Well, Hachiman going to be banned out here. That's what we saw across the way last time around. The Fafnir banned by OCG. They're not taking it themselves, and had Simplicity gone the same composition that we saw last game, the double Hunter, Fafnir obviously synergizes with that, bringing Coerce with the attack speed change to the party. So a number of nice choices here from both sides of the coin, but Outcold Gaming will finish the round of bans with a Poseidon. And Death Panther will get Nuwa, a character that he plays kind of often.
I'm not 100% sold that it's Nuwa in the mid lane, however. Like, I still think that it might be Uller in the mid lane trying to get that advantage. Nuwa doesn't have the same kind of pushing power that an Uller does, at least the levels 1 through 4. Nuwa needs a couple more abilities in that Shining Metal, some items as well to lower the cooldown reduction, and I think that we're going to see Uller yet again in mid.
Well, we've certainly seen Nuwa take her position in the carry role once or twice or 3 times or many times over. Mages like to hide in that long lane. Why is that?
Because the supports are definitely rotating away from that dual lane for as long as possible. If you're not looking to invade early, just kick your support out of the lane anyway, right? Like, just forget about him and then have your Hunter or Magical Hunter or just Magical Mage in that lane soak up all that solo experience.
Well, a solo Nuwa? You know what? I'm not going to guess. We've got casters standing by. Finch and Aggro, show us where they'll play.
I'd be more than happy to, Tom and Tolly, as we move into the game between Outcold and Simplicity. And after what Simplicity showed us in game number 1, Outcold need to rework things. I think they did by picking up this Khepri for themselves and taking it out of Genetics' hands. But the support Nuwa.
That's, yes. Yes, I agree. That is interesting.
All right, here's some things
it has a root for free.
Yes, a root.
She can stealth your team.
She can stealth your team, and she can also stun people.
That's right.
and she can reveal people on the map.
Right.
Those are supporty type
She
things.
she could build Gem of Isolation and globally slow them
That's very good. Yeah, she's got that.
with her ult.
And you know what? I bet she's not too bad in lane either.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think it's gonna be good. Let me preface with that. Okay. I'm not going into this thinking, well, I can't wait to play Nuwa support later.
Right.
I will, however, say that I think that there is room in Smite for gods that will not go full tank, that play support, quote unquote, that are there to help you get a little bit of lane pressure, fight you in the early game, poke better than Guardians will, and then provide some support characteristics later on in the game. I think that there is room for that.
Nice axe there from Streak Up that stopped Half Double from pulling Genetics in. So far, the Nuwa getting slightly bullied. But to be fair, level 1 Rom and Khepri, pretty decent clear against just about anybody, so don't take too much stock in what you saw just there.
I am going to say, though, that if I'm any other team and I see, well, if Genetics doesn't get Khepri, he picks Nuwa, I'm first picking Khepri up. You know?
If that's number 2.
Right.
Yeah, let's get my man on Nuwa as much as we can, right? If you're on the other side. But maybe he'll show us. I was very high on the draft from Outcold last game.
Sure.
And its potential to turn the game around even when they were down a little bit. And Simplicity never gave them that opportunity. They really played better as a unit, particularly around fails and Genetics. So if this is what Genetics needs to have the same type of performance he had last game, then I'm all here for it.
I love the adjustment, though, from Outcold to take away that Khepri.
It was smart.
There's the poke potential of Nuwa, regardless of what role she has, having a free route. You know, can you believe that I was in a chat at some point and they were like, yeah, Nuwa passive doesn't do anything, it sucks. And I was like,
Yes.
what are you guys, what?
You know what's frustrating? And I am going to bring this back to your point. When I said my thing about Ho Yi,
Yeah.
a lot of people said I think he's not that good because I can't hit Ricochet.
Right.
Which I think is untrue.
Right.
The reason why people think Nuwa Root is bad is because they're not hitting. That's where you all should be using that meme. And you're wasting it on minions and stuff like that.
Right. Or you're hitting it and then you don't know how to hit them afterwards.
Right.
Like hit the buttons afterwards. Did Genetics put 2 points into his clay minions right away? Can we take a look? I think he just spawned 2. He did.
Yeah, he did.
Okay. So you can
no
kinda,
fog at all.
No fog at all quite yet. You can kind of use those clay minions as extra health bars, I guess. And if you're not going to be using them to stun quite as often, instead just use them to absorb shots from the enemy players, auto attacks from Spudio, maybe just try and annoy your opposition. And they apply the prot shred when hitting. So having more of them, each Cloy Golem applies a certain amount of prot shred on connect whenever they hit you. That's the dash magical protection reduction per stack. I don't know why I had such trouble with that. So by having more of them,
Nothing
they
else is
stack.
called that is why.
Right, yeah, I suppose so. They stack pretty well, so it will strip away those protections pretty well. But here's why I don't love this pick in this particular composition. Because you're stripping away, it's only magical prot shred. It's not physical prot, and you've got no one to do magical damage on your team. Maniac's going to do a little bit, but he doesn't really care about the prot shred that much. You're playing support Nuwa. You're playing double hunter with this. If this was with a traditional mage, I think it would be better.
It is a bit curious. I wonder, are you expecting to see more attention from Frostiak over here? How well does Nuwa get away from the Erlang Shen in the long lane? In the middle lane, it feels like she's very reliant on going up into the sky, but over here she's got some more room to run, perhaps.
Yes, she does, and we've seen Emilito and Zapman play a lot of Nuwa ADC last year, and they showed that you could play it pretty safe, but that's by building power so that you can just drop your fog and wait until the minions come to you, and then you're still pretty safe underneath your tower line. I don't know that you'll be able to do that quite as well with Nuwa in the support role. You're going to have to put yourself in more dangerous positions just by nature of what your role is supposed to be doing.
For what it's worth, Frostiak not particularly aggressive this time.
So Dimmy switches it up from last game. Last game he goes what everyone goes, which is Glad Shield, and now he's in some trouble. Good taunt, but the ultimate is on the wrong player. Half Devil was there, but he scares blessings onto Frostiak, and Dimmy falls for first blood.
Unfortunate. Maybe Frostiak has a chance. We can catch up to Fails, but it looks like he can't. Pretty Prime does rotate over and drop down the Blizzard, forces Death Panter to run. The flames are there as well as Prime tries to burn this Chernobog down, but I think Death Panter's very comfortable. Look at how he's staying outside the tower line.
Oh, here comes Nuwa Nuwa support, baby. It's
Where's
here.
the root?
He already missed it. It doesn't matter. Maniac still gets the kill. Frostiak was able to strip away that blue, it looks like. But an unfortunate missed ultimate there by Half Devil ends up making Dimmy spill. And now Dimmy sells his boots and picks up Glad Shield. Okay, so it must have been a misbuy. I was going to say maybe because Maniac's playing so passively, he decides to go Berserker Shield because he's got the constant cleave that he can consistently stay full HP in lane just by way of by auto-attacking, and then buy the Glad Shield later on, but it seems like it was a misbuy. And I'm glad I didn't say all those things before.
Yeah, the Glad Shield, I mean, selling the Berserker Shield to pick back up the Glad Shield means that you really didn't want the Berserker Shield.
He had Boots 1 as well.
Because it's such a loss of gold, isn't it? It's backwards that he's going in the build pass. So
yes.
It's so rare that we see it in Smite. There are some other games I think we're selling the items as a more common thing, but in Smite, it really is such a loss to go backwards in your build path that it really must have just been rough. He definitely didn't want Berserkers, I'm thinking.
No, definitely not. And honestly, for good reason. Glad Shield is the whole reason Arthur works.
Yes, it really is.
So you need it every single time. So Dimmy makes the tough but correct call to sell the Berserker Shield from that position. Although, I mean, maybe he could have left it on Boots 1 and then just had both Berserkers and Glad Shield.
Maybe so.
Maybe that's better because you can use the physical protection because they've got triple physical anyways. I don't think so. I think that just biting the bullet and selling is the right call.
I think so too, and Dimmy willing to make it. We have anything else that's kind of like that? I know for a while Teleport and Beads had that problem where they looked kind of similar and they were too close, and people were accidentally picking up Teleport when they wanted Beads and stuff like that.
Yeah, so. at the very beginning of the new icons.
Yeah.
Frostiak low. Here comes the blink in. Oh no, Fails doesn't have blink, the leap in rather. Half Devil's got to get in range so that he can drop the ultimate if necessary, but instead no. Death Panther rather is going to Dimmy.
That is curious. He went all the way over here towards this King Arthur. The ultimate from Maniac came out as well, so that was a full-on commit. And they didn't really get much of anything out of that. Very curious from Simplicity about where they were going with that one.
Well, they did force Frostiak to ultimate because he thought that he was going to be landed on and just needed that burst heal as soon as possible. So could have been worse, I suppose, though expending Maniac's ultimate at the same time definitely hurts you a little bit.
Yeah, that does make it look less and less like a Galaxy Brain bait onto Frostiak and more like they really were trying to kill Dimmy. And unfortunately, they couldn't make that one happen. So instead, Dimmy now has a safer time over there, not having to worry about that ultimate from Terra for a little while.
And this is what I'm talking about when I say Prime spending a lot of time in fire stance, just clearing the wave at this point. He does it so quickly in the fire stance, especially when you're maxing the 2. Those little dragon heads put out a ton of damage on any stationary target. Merlin, by far the best traditional mid-mage at burning objectives just because Dragonfire is such a nuts ability on a stationary target. Prot Shred, tons of damage, applies a burn, it does it all.
Death Panter took about half HP, but Half Devil didn't want anything more. So instead, he'll just stay back. Genetics coming to join. Remember, this is the new support rotating over. She's got to keep up with this Khepri, man. Make sure that she's wherever he is on the map and try and keep things even. So far, though, it's worked out well. Genetics 1-0-1 on this new rotated over to solo lane and helped them clean up the kills onto Dimmy and Half Devil. So it's working so far.
That first blood gold, really the only gold that he has in the lead at this point. He'll be playing pretty aggressively with both Key and Maniac at low HP numbers, but of course he'll get those back fairly quickly between the Warrior's Blessing and the Glad Shield procs. But I think that, I mean, we talked about it a decent amount in Game 1, but Maniac was really critical in that victory because he just doesn't get crushed in that lane. That's really all he has to do.
Right.
He's lost 6 Totem of Coups this game to again, all 6 that have been down have been for Outcold. That's a pretty good gold lead that they're getting from just that alone, but he just needs to not die and make the impact later on, and Maniac did that well in the last game.
Dimmy diving with Frostiak nearby. And Fury comes out as well, but Fails is here with the Fear No Evil, and that punishes Frostiak, who overcommits. Genetics with the Fire Shards brings Dimmy quite low as well, but Simplicity have already done more than enough just by surviving that gank.
Just not enough damage on a Maniac, and Frostiak really didn't have a hope of doing enough damage that early on to burst him down. As nice little monkey teleport in, fails as he uses a Purification Beats, and for good reason. Half Devil's Abduct was well timed, and he still had the ultimate. Without Fear No Evil, I don't think that was working out.
Demi low, does get rooted, but is able to fall back out. But yeah, a curious dive on the right-hand side. That was one that they clearly wanted to go for. That's why Demi was aggressing. He knew Frostiak was rotating in. I wonder if perhaps they didn't know Fails was there. I mean, they didn't have that much damage, but I think if it's just the 2v1,
yes,
they can tank that tower and eventually bring Maniac down. But Fails coming here with the Fear No Evil meant there was just no chance.
Yes, exactly. I don't think they had that information. No wards on the top side from Outcold to spot exactly where Fails came from. And just good timing by the Simplicity jungler to get there right on time.
And I'm glad to see Fails doing well, man. In this set so far, he has also been critical
yes,
for keeping Simplicity in this game. On the Unbots in both games so far, same build path, going with that Jotun's round to get the cooldown out. It's been perfectly timing these Fear No Evils. And we said it before game number 1 that they'd have to be perfectly timed. This ultimate is so critical for this team and in limiting Demi's mobility and limiting what Prime can do in this Merlin, and so far it's done exactly that.
He was so important in the last one as well, to think that he's having just as good of a start this time around, if not better. I think he started off a little bit slower in the last one. This is a good sign for Simplicity so far. They've got a very slight gold lead, sure, but we saw how quickly they could break the game open in that last one. So I think Outcold has definitely got to be very aware of what's going to be happening around these objectives. And this Nuwa support has not been punished at all. There's been no pressure onto her whatsoever. And this is where I think that you can really still do it, because Genetics probably feels much tankier now. He's got tank boots and sovereignty, and I'm level 9. I'm out of that the worst part of playing support, which is the really early levels, but he's got no inherent magical defense.
Right.
And that's a huge difference between mages and well, just about every class in supports and guardians, is that you won't have those inherent tank stats. And so if I'm Prime, I'm telling Half Devil, 1 abduct, and I basically insta-kill this guy as long as I'm in fire stance already, because you drop the Dragon Fire and shoot out the Flamethrower, and I'm not sure Genetics ever gets a chance to use those fire shards.
Our solo laners are level 12 now, and I've been following with these relics. Last game, there were very few team fighting relics. It was a ton of blinks for both of these teams. So I'm curious if that's going to be the same strategy here. If they want to be aggressive and try and set for those initiations. Even Genetics had one, I believe, last game too. And that's where we saw that blink abduct. Or is there going to be a little bit more focus on, more sprints in this game, more shells, trying to keep these team fights alive, even inside all of this control coming up from Simplicity?
Yeah, I think a sprint wouldn't do too poorly here for Simplicity in particular, because the slows that Prime can provide, especially if he ends up going Gem of Isolation, though he didn't in that last game.
He seemed away from the core Merlin build, didn't he, in that last game?
A little bit. Genetics actually uses that Fire Shards ultimate as Outcold had started pulling that Pyromancer. It's so weird to watch a Nuwa stun do literally no damage, but I'm going to have to get used to it in this game, I suppose. Yeah, no gem last game for Prime. It definitely is a little bit worse after the change, where it doesn't apply that Frostbolt bonus damage right away, but I think it's still worth going on Merlin for sure.
Spudio might be in some trouble as he goes up into the air. That does buy him some time, and I think Fails recognizes he's got to get out of there. There's a lot of Outcold lurking in the jungle to come follow up had they been needed. Root lands on the Half Devil. That means Death Painter can follow up, but Fails is the one who gets caught out by Frostiak, who locks him down. They can't quite kill him, though. It looks like it doesn't cost him his beads either, so Fails makes it out.
There's a good opportunity, though, if I'm on Outcold, to start pulling this objective, because you know that Fails is poked out. Now you got Genetics in a bad spot. Nice little double stun, though. Here comes Fails over the top.
Fear No Evil, that pins Half Devil up against the wall. He immediately drops the Scarab's Blessing. Meanwhile, Frostiak forces Streak up out with an ultimate of his own. Now Genetics stuck in between 3, and Nuwa doesn't have a ton of options in this spot, and Spudio punishes her. That means Genetics goes back to base.
But the problem is too low on mana for all of Outcold to pull that Gold Fury, even after getting that pick. I mean, Frostiak very low on mana. Prime had to back right away. Just not enough to stick around and do that Gold Fury, despite pulling out a couple ultimates and surviving a good engage by Simplicity. Looking better there for Outcold. That was better.
A much better fight, at least. The Genetics does end up taking a bit of a seat. See if he can still have that same impact, even after missing out on some farm for a little while. But that one was curious. I feel like it starts with Fails looking for Spudio over in duo, and the rotations from Outcold being a little bit better. Genetics actually had a really nice stun initially that got him out of trouble, but he still ended up being a little bit too far forward. I wonder if there's still a little bit of getting used to being on this new Wa and not on a traditional Guardian for him.
I will say that I don't think it's done a single thing that other supports could not have done.
Right. And that's the
well,
question.
Maybe
right?
not. He was there. He rotated to solo anyways. He got an assist on a kill that he was not near. That's one thing it did.
Half double already half HP. Overhand smash comes through, and just like that, we've got ourselves a cooked lobster. Simplicity. Just recognizing half double's too far forward. Prime tried, but there's nothing he could do.
That's where the new Wa actually provided a decent amount, right? A quick stun that locks him in place for quite some time, and able to shred those prots a little bit, though. Again, it's only for genetics, I suppose. So I don't know.
Fails, blinks forward. Fear No Evil is there for Frostyak. Root does not land, but Spudio is forced to use his beads. That's a good catch from Streak Up. But the Gold Fury is still leashed and still very low. Big knockup from Frostyak inside the damage from Prime, and that does set up the kill. Genetics goes down. Spudio has already used his ultimate, and they don't find much, so Maniac can blow Prime up, but Spudio stands tall against Fails to make it 2 for 1 so far.
Death Panther lands right down, straight into the wall, waiting for Dimmy to try and back up a little bit. Maniac's there with some solid peel, but Frostyak with a nice pin up and over the top sets Dimmy up perfectly.
Yeah, nowhere for Death Panther to go, so he ends up falling, and Dimmy happy to continue spinning his way towards Streak Up. Yes, the ult, and that sets it up. A double kill for King Arthur, who finally takes the throne. The rest of the team, though, they want to head back towards this Gold Fury. That's where Half Double already is. He's got follow-up there, too. King Arthur just keeps him zoned.
Frostyak able to survive so long in that fight, despite being in low HP. Just good use of the kit and brings plenty of CC as well, and Dimmy just gets to do King Arthur stuff in that team fight. The control was there last game, right? The Fear No Evil and the Khepri. Nuwa's not going to be able to control a King Arthur by any stretch. So you really don't have those opportunities to lock him down nearly as well. And Fear No Evil had already been expended by the time Dimmy came in and started playing that fight. So he gets a much easier time at just running down these carries.
Very, very strong fight for Outcold. And I really liked the way Frostyak played that fight for what it's worth. He kept them locked down inside that Blizzard from Prime. That set up a lot of damage from them, too. And that was even through what I thought was a fairly good Fear No Evil from Fails that Outcold was able to win that fight. So this Blackthorn Hammer doing work for Frostyak, keeping him alive, and he's making the impact. And like you said, once King Arthur gets some space and he's able to isolate a couple of targets, it's so difficult to slow him down. So finally, some of these very strong meta picks are Outcold showing their value.
An early Shogun's Kasari here for genetics, and I like it for 2 reasons. Number one, he's got 200s on his team, so you want that pretty much as early as possible. But number 2, it gives him attack speed too, and lets him get more roots.
It's a good thing to have as Maniac is up in the air from Dimmy, right back down into the damage from Prime. An easy kill for the mid lane mage thanks to the lockdown from Dimmy. And I think Maniac might have been slightly less tanky than he expected once he was surrounded by all about cold. That means this Pyromancer should be free, though the rest of Simplicity will force down the tier 1. They've got this Uller pushed up from Streak Up, but now he's got to find a way out. He still is able to jump, but Dimmy's not done chasing.
Dimmy already used the blink, though, so he's not going to be able to
just
close
for the slow.
that gap. Yeah, Death Panther jumped up, used that ultimate, and it blows my mind that there's a global slow in the game that's really hard to get rid of, and people don't like rage about it all.
So they don't pick that more often, but Half Double yet again gets first, and he gets caught out, and he's already removed. Streak Up finds the kill. The tier 1 tower absolutely goes down, and Frostyak's forced to retreat on the right-hand side, but Simplicity get another free pick.
But Finch, Half Double still has ult and shell.
Yes, he does.
Either one saves him from that position. You can't die that way.
He's been very patient with his ultimates. And I don't even know if patience is the right word. He's been a little too slow with them in this whole set.
This is what I like to call saving it for next game.
Right.
You know? Where it's
He'll
patient.
have half the cooldown next game, right?
Right.
All of
Yeah. Though if it doesn't go their way, it might be saving it for next set at this rate.
That's right.
Simplicity's already up to that 1-0 lead.
It is scary for Outcold now, though they do have the lead in this game in terms of gold by a little over 3,000 in their favor, so they can feel comfortable with that. Experience appears to be favoring them too. Dimmy and Pretty Prime and Spudio all enjoying a nice level lead over their direct opposition, so this is looking much better so far for Outcold. But remember, they were slightly ahead last game too, and they ended up losing a couple fights. The Gold Fury fight and then the fight around that tier 2 in mid were the ones that collapsed and allowed for Simplicity to take the game.
This time it's Outcold, who have a much better control of the game than they did at this point last time around. So they're going to group up and try and force down something all around Dimmy. They really seem to want to fight around their solo laner, and for good reason. He's been a nightmare in these last few team fights.
And Spudio having a nice game for himself as well, 2-0-3
Yep.
on this ROM. Executioner into Kinsai, so he's ignored so far these new items, but he's way down there in player damage. These have been cleanups, I guess, from the ultimate then, is what
that's what it must be. Though, to be fair to him, neither Death Panther nor Streak Up is doing a whole lot.
That's true. They're all clumped up together.
So they're all kind of clumped up right there. And Finch, you were curious about what relic genetics was going to go. It's upgraded Sunder.
That's on me for not knowing that that's obviously the tech when you're playing the new support.
Okay, wait. It actually might not be that bad.
I don't think so either. It's similar to like an Athena, right?
Right. Yeah. You root them, you sunder them, you stun them. They take a bunch of damage.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll see if it works.
Anyone with that easily confirmable CC, Sunder makes sense, because you hit them with that initially, then the Sunder immediately afterwards, and the rest of your team blows them up.
The problem is Sunder is an all-in commit relic.
Yes,
and if Half Devil does his job, then there's an all-in commit erase button, right, in Scarab's Blessing that negates the Sunder, negates everything that Simplicity will dump into what I assume would be Dimmy in these frontline team fights. As well as the fact that it's not super easy to lock down Dimmy even with a root, because he can just still use those spins and move around pretty well. Either his blue or orange stance 3 will still get him out of those roots, or at least let him move around, albeit fairly slowly. So this is a risky call. I think that Half Devil now has a lot on his shoulders to make sure that he's making sure that this Sunder doesn't get value.
You know, if I'm paying attention to Half Devil and I notice he's been very relaxed on when he uses these ultimates, maybe Sunder makes some sense.
Yeah.
As Oni Fury gets burned very, very quickly by Outcold. So quickly, in fact, that Simplicity are never in the same neighborhood. Fails comes on the back end with Fear No Evil, but he doesn't find much. Spudio is hitting those snipes we talked about earlier, but Death Panther's the one that finds the first kill. Half Devil goes down.
Again, with ult and with shell. Now Frostiak falls on that backside. Genetics still has that Sunder available. Does use it right now, and all of a sudden Dimmy just gets evaporated by those double hunters.
Pretty Prime avoids the axe stun with the flicker, goes back in for the slow, but perhaps a miscalculation. The Aegis keeps him alive, yes, but he's just barely in range of those autos. Now Genetics can come in, and I don't think Prime has any idea. Spudio trying to stand tall, and Maniac's actually getting chunked by these autos, but it's just too many. Streak Up finds the accuracy, and that's the killing spree now for the Hunter for Simplicity.
Spudio actually nearly took down Streak Up there. That was really good accuracy by Spudio and keeping cool under pressure, but still not enough.
It was just too many. Maniac was there with him too, but he was winning the trade. It was just a 1v2.
Man, it feels bad to keep harping on it. It really does.
Right, yes.
I don't take any joy in it, but you got to use your Khepri ultimate. You just have to. It's part of the. It's a huge reason why this character gets picked at a competitive level, is because you can negate a focus onto somebody else or yourself. And if even you make Simplicity hang around and look at you as you're rezzing a little bit longer, then maybe Frostiak can live on the back.
Fire Giant now being pulled by Simplicity. And if Half Devil's going to just charge right on in, then they can feel good about this. He's just contesting it with the autos, and Simplicity secured easily. Half Devil finally does drop the ultimate, this time onto himself, and he will be able to make it out. But Maniac needs some help on the back end of this fight, or Frostiak rather. He's getting out of there with that turtle form, and it does allow him to reposition. But Simplicity feel good. They got Fire Giant and Pyromancer.
Absolutely, they're feeling great because they got double hunters with Fire Giant. Now it isn't enhanced at this point. Wow, look at that gold swing. It's all from that team fight going poorly for Outcold after they got that Oni Fury. They clearly put a lot into getting the objective, but then just lost the team fight so heavily afterwards that it was a huge work against them in that spot. And then, as I was saying, now you've got double hunter. They gets to start sieging some towers, and you get a really easy chance to take a lot of gold in your favor, not just have a slight gold lead.
Well, and this is where they turn it into a very big lead, and this is what can happen so often. So I almost wonder if Outcold, while they're still close, while this match is still relevant, if they don't try and take a fight on one of these tier 2s, because I don't know if at this juncture you can afford to give up 5,000 gold.
That's right. Here's the way I always look at it. Would I rather take a fight down X amount of gold, whatever I am right now, which is 0? Would I rather take an even fight with them having Fire Giant on a tier 2 or a fight down 10k on my Phoenix with Enhanced Fire Giant. Or even without the Enhanced Fire Giant. In my mind, especially if it's not enhanced, I'm always taking this fight on the tier 2 at even gold rather than a huge gold deficit later on in the game. I think this is a much better call. Give them the tier 1. Who cares about that? Make them come and commit into the lane a little bit further.
That's right. See if we can get them down into this narrow choke point. And it does offer up some opportunities for a potential rotation from Frostiak to try and loop around and catch them committing into this tier 2 tower. This is a critical fight for Outcold if they want to try and stop this lead from Simplicity from ballooning out of control.
Pretty Prime wants to get some poke in, but he needs to be worried as a Spudio, no Aegis for just a couple seconds, though they're about to be up. Genetics doesn't have a horrific emblem for about 10 seconds either. That's another thing that can really shut down King Arthur pretty well just by reducing his damage output for a little bit of time. It means he's healing less if he's dealing less.
It's fails over the wall this time, so a Blink Fear No Evil appears to be in the cards. And Outcold aren't tremendously spread out,
Wow,
which means that Maniac can go in and hit everyone with his ultimate fails, biding his time, but might have waited too long. Maniac is low, he ends up falling, but there comes the Fear No Evil. Half Devil goes down first, Death Panther right there to follow up. Big fire charge from Genetics. That means everyone's taking more damage. Prime has the Aegis, but Death Panther's gonna follow through for the double. Nowhere for Spudio to go either. Streak Up finds one of his own, and all of a sudden it all collapsed for Outcold.
Oh, Frostiak sacrifices himself, but just gets decided in the
double hunters
process.
too.
And here's where Nuwa support does something that no support could do.
She's got the minions.
Spawn some minions to tank the Titans.
That's right. She's even got the Lonos there as well, so a little bit extra tankiness even in her own right. But this game is over. Simplicity in 27 minutes in a dominant team fight on that tier 2 tower. Strip out Cold of any chance, and they take the set.
Maniac does it all in that team fight. I mean, sure, he's the first one who dies. He's the first one out. But when you hit a 5-man Terra's Blessing on the enemy team, it is actively hard to lose the fight. You have to really, really mess up from that spot to lose. And that's where Maniac does it, dies, and then goes, all right, go ahead.
You guys got it.
You guys have it all from here. I already did what I had to do.
And it's the easiest Blink Fear No Evil of fails his life because there's no one thinking about him any longer.
Right.
When your whole team gets hit by Earth and Fury, no one's worrying about where the Unbots is any longer. You're like, oh, I guess we're all gonna die now. That's what's happening in comms.
Yes, exactly. You just can't keep track of all of that.
No, it's impossible.
Again, Half Devil gets kind of separated and ends up dying before he gets the ultimate off. Outcold it seems like every week I'm like, okay, maybe they just need to work on something else and it'll be fine. This is the first week where I really feel like Outcold look totally lost.
Yes.
And I really don't know where they should start to fix it.
Yeah, they truly had some struggles. Maybe back to the drawing board for Outcold as a big win comes through from Simplicity 2-0. Let's get back over to the desk so they can break down what they saw.
Thanks a lot, fam. This one goes in the direction of Simplicity. Outcold left out in the cold, even with King Arthur, man.
And Merlin on top of it, it just wasn't enough. And even switching to the Capri, a more defensive Guardian for Half Devil, wasn't enough to save Pretty Prime. A lot of it came down to, I think, not respecting the global pressure. Death Panther yet again on the Chernobog, this time Genetics with global pressure, playing the Nuwa. And when they towered over around that 10-minute mark, I was left scratching my head. They're like trying to gank a level 10, level 11 Terra. A little bit too late for that, especially with the double global pressure.
Yeah, a little bit kind of rough there. The support Nuwa. What was your take?
I didn't mind it too much there because of how much action there was in this game, and no other support character could have killed Dimmy in that exact same scenario.
Support Neath could have.
Sure. Fair enough. No, you're not wrong. No, you're not wrong. But actually, maybe intercept the arrow from somebody. You never know. There's a lot of traffic between the dual lane and that soul lane. You joke, but there's always that little things that you got to worry about. And Genetics, I think, played a fantastic Nuwa. I don't think that they had the lane pressure that they necessarily probably would have wanted to, but it still worked out in the team fighting presence.
Yeah, I think this was a little bit silly. Aggro really highlighted it. You know, if you're not playing Double Hunter, maybe I can talk about it if you land every single route. This was what we call a fun boy flex. This was just Genetics going, hey, I'm going to play Nuwa and we'll win anyway. And that's exactly what Simplicity does. Fails one more time, 3-3-7. Great job on the Monk.
And also picking up the Sunder for the Nuwa. You
no
got
wonder.
Clay Golems to mitigate a lot, or rather reduce that magical protection. You had a Sunder on top, and
Not a
everyone
blunder.
is just taking a lot of damage from this Nuwa and the Terra combination. Maniac had a great showing as well, being able to survive that soul lane gank. And this is the thing that makes Maniac such a traditional soul laner, that he's sacrificing his early game with the Guardian Terra selection, thinking about the greater good of the team fights.
It's like thunder.
Sure. Yeah, Thunder.
Did you catch any of my?
Yeah, the blunder, the Thunder, I wasn't rolling with it.
Blunder.
Yeah.
Thunder. No wonder.
Sunder, yeah.
Yep.
From my Sunder originally.
You like
I
that
got
one?
you. I got you.
Well, we'll take a look at the standings and see who's above or under. Right now, the top of the league is going to be Flashpoint until he's rolling his eyes. But Team Queso here in number 3, and I want to touch on them real quick. Outcold, I think, obviously underperforming here, but Team Queso 2 and 3. Anatoly, Alpha Jackal has been coaching this team, and this is the Poppies squad. I have liked what I see out of them, but I'm very cautiously optimistic.
The thing is, 2 of their 3 losses were from Flashpoint, so it's difficult because they're on fire right now. It's difficult for anyone to take out Flashpoint, so I don't necessarily fault Queso for their standings, but the last set in particular against Flashpoint wasn't the cleanest. It was very quick games. I think they need to go back to the drawing board and kind of scrap this idea of like warriors in the mid lane where it was the someone calling in game number 1 just didn't really work out for them.
I mean, the Vamana, what was that, week number 2 or 3? The Vamana worked. So, I mean, they're being very creative, and I think that Alpha Jackal is kind of taking advantage of being here in the minor league to be so creative. You know, is this a team that is experimental and they might win because of it, or is this just kind of let's see what works team?
I think they're trying to find their identity and figuring out what works, what doesn't work. And if you want to throw curveballs, I don't necessarily mind it, but there has to be logic and reasoning behind it. And so far, I haven't seen that between Worst playing the Giannis and Warchi playing the Sun Wukong, at least in this week.
Sure. Well, Team Queso's on our mind, so we're a little hungry. We're going to grab a snack. We'll be right back with a third match of the SML.